Hi everyone! Today we're going to talk about the Final Flicktier, created by Gabe Barret. The Final Flicktier is a game suited for ages above 10, from 1 to 4 players, with an approximate duration of 60 minutes. The goal in this game is to be the player with the highest number of victory points. Setup: set the neoprene mats together in the middle of the table, so the initial planets are at the outer corners. Place a random resource token in the center of every other planet. Each player chooses a faction and takes their player board, their dices, their tokens, and 2 gray cubes. Place the 2 gray cubes on the empty squares in the player board. Place the resources decks next to the game board. Each player takes a card of each resource. The combat side will be a secret to the rest of the players. After that, place the victory points tokens next to the board depending on the number of players, and next to them the explorer tokens. Following that, place next to them the mission deck and flip the first 3 cards. The amount of missions will depend on the number of players. Once this is done, everything is ready to start playing. Player's turn. In their turn, players can perform 2 different actions of the following ones. Move. The player can hit twice the same dice, or hit once the 2 of them. In order to do that, the player can spin the dice without changing the upper face. If a tile or another dice is on the path the player wants to make, they can be set aside and then returned to their place once the movement action is done. If the dice hits another one or a token, the player's dice stays where its movement ends, but the other dice or token is placed in its original position. Attack. When performing an attack, the players must indicate their target. If some tile or dice interferes in the player's path, it can be set aside and then returned to its place. When declaring an attack, the attacker must play a resource card facing down, without showing the combat side. At this moment, the defender can play a combat card. The hyperspace tile is placed behind the defender dice in the following way. Once the attacker hits the dice, the following can happen. The dice hits the defender, and the defender doesn't move away farther than the hyperspace length. In that moment, the attacker flips the resource card to show the combat side and adds that value to the value showed in the dice. This value is compared with the defender's ones, and the highest one wins the combat. In this case, the winner stays in the same place, and the loser is taken back to their planet of origin. The resource cards stay in front of the players. These can be used as resources, but not for combat purposes. The attacker's side wins. It receives a victory point. If the attacker dice hits the defender, and this one gets out of the hyperspace, the defender places their dice at any point of the board and gets rid of the combat. Both players return the cards to their hands. If the attacker dice doesn't get to hit, nothing happens, and both players return the cards to their hands. Build. The players discard the necessary resource cards and place a structure tile in a planet where they have a dice. Only one structure can be built per action. One same planet can have different structures built on it, as long as they are not repeated. Structures grant points at the end of the game. Exploiting resources. The player takes a resource card for each planet where the player has any dice or a circular structure, up to a maximum of 3. Each planet shows what kind of resource it grants. At the end of their turn, players can't have more than 9 cards, counting their hands and in front of them. Complete mission. The players can spend an action to take a mission card they have completed and place it in front of them facing down. After drawing a mission, it must be replaced immediately. Upgrade. By paying the cost indicated by the player board, place the cube on the level 1 upgrade. When the next improvement is obtained, the current and the previous improvement will be active. Return. With this action, the dice returns to its planet of origin. The game ends when one of the following actions happens. A player gets the last victory point tile in a combat. A player builds their last structure. The mission deck is over, and a new mission is accomplished. When this happens, it begins a final round, and every player has an additional turn. The player with more victory points is the winner. In the case of a tie, combat values of the resource cards are compared, and the winner is the one with the highest sum. Support us on Kickstarter and become a conqueror of the galaxy with the Final Flicktier.